know about the rest of you, but I could sit here and sing like this all night. And I'm looking forward to a time where we can sit like this and sing together in eternity in heaven in praises to our God. But unfortunately, tonight's going to come to an end, and tomorrow we're going to get up, and most of us are going to go to work. And if you don't go to work, if you're still in school and you're out of school, then eventually there's going to come a time when you're going to go back to school come August. And life's going to happen, and things are going to happen, and the world's going to come at you just like it always does. Because the devil doesn't take a summer break, and the devil doesn't take a vacation. The devil's still going to be there, and he's still going to be coming at you. But so often we forget just how powerful our God is when we start to focus on the problems that drag us down in life. We start to focus on how weak we are, and we forget the power of our God. In Genesis 1, we read the account of creation, and we read how God spoke into existence the entire universe. We read step by step. And at the end of every day, as God goes throughout creation, he looks and says that he looks and he sees that it is good. But what I think is really interesting and what we forget a lot of times, if you go down to verse 26, then God said, "Let us make man in our image according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the air, over the cattle and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created them, male and female. He created them. And then in verse 31, then God saw that everything he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day. There was something different about the sixth day. It wasn't just that God had made the beast of the fields and the creeping things on that day. That God had made a man in his likeness. And God had made something special on that day. And at the end of that day, it was very good. And I think that so often we forget that we're made in the image of God. We forget that we are, in fact, God's greatest creation, the one that he took the most pride in, the one that God loved so much that he would send his son for. And so often we question God, we question his power when we start to feel the trials of the world envelop us. We look around and we look to ourselves, we look to our fellow man, and we let ourselves down over and over again, and we get discouraged. But God is so powerful, and he can overcome any trials that come through our life. In Job chapter 38, if you'll turn there with me, Job chapter 38, as I looked through the book of Job, and I was studying, I see all these bad things that happen to Job, but then about chapter 9 thereabout, Job starts, instead of looking straight to God, Job starts complaining, and he starts talking, he starts doubting God. And there's a very, very long part of the book of Job that is simply Job questioning God and questioning God's authority, questioning God's ability to fix the problems in his life, despite everything that God had blessed him with up to that point. The things that God had allowed to be taken away only could be taken away because they were given to him in the first place. And yet, Job goes on, and I love the answer that the Lord gives to him in chapter 38, starting in verse 4. When God's speaking out of the whirlwind, and he says, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? To what were its foundations fastened? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy, or who shut the sea with doors when it burst forth and issued from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band? When I fixed my limit for it and set the bars and doors, when I said, 'This far you may come, but no further, and here your proud waves stop. Have you commanded the morning since your days, and caused the dawn to know its place, that it might take hold of the end of the earth, and the wicked be shaken out of it?'" I love this passage from Job and God's response to Job questioning him, because God looks at Job and he says, "Where were you in creation? What did you do? What have you done? What have you accomplished? What power do you have?" And the Lord continues to go through the end of chapter 41. He goes on for almost 4 chapters, and he talks to Job, and it's just question after question after question. Job, what have you done? Who are you? Who are you really? Who are you to question God? And that's exactly what we have to ask ourselves sometimes, because God has a plan. God's plan is greater than our plan. Isaiah 55 verse 9 says, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. And so often we forget that, and we try to fix things ourselves. So if you're in that situation and you're caught up in your own trials and you're questioning God and questioning his ability, and your faith is struggling, go back and read this from Job, because it's kind of a wake-up call to us as Christians. It's a wake-up call to see we aren't really anything. And yet, God loved us so much that he sent his only Son. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. And he sent his Son for our powerless and sinful lives. And his Son is the only way that we can have the promise that he's given us through the baptism, through the blood of his Son, encountering the blood of his Son through the waters of baptism, having your sins washed away. So if you've done that and you've started to lose your faith, if you've done that and you started to question the Lord, if you've done that and the trials of life are getting to you and you are doubting and you're so enveloped in your own failures, then you need to realize that there's a God who is so powerful and who is in control. So if we can help you in any way, would you come as we stand and sing?